Y'all, we're going over the car with a fine-tooth comb, getting ready for the Street Stock Nationals. In the last race we ran the car, I was really happy with how we were really coming on with the speed on this car, but make no doubt about it, I was matting it lap after lap, and the car was running really warm. That got me concerned. It got up to about 240 degrees by the last lap of the race, and then once we came off the track, slowed down RPMs, it really shot up on the heat. So I was looking for what was going wrong. I think I found it. I want to show you all this. Might save you some trouble. Alright, so this radiator right here, it is a dual pass radiator. Of course, this is the Speedway model and everything. I bought this new this year. There's no damage to it. It's not gotten dented up or anything going on with it. But I was running a 30-pound cap on this radiator. And I felt like that this radiator should have been able to hold a 30-pound cap. I see it in combos where they'll offer it with that cap and everything. And I had the fins collapse. I say fins, the tubes going across expanded and collapsed my fins, and it's easy to miss. You don't even see it from the front. This is the back side where the fan would be, and so I actually had this radiator out and I was soaking it in a kiddie pool, which is the best way to clean the dirt out of one and everything. Let them soak in a kiddie pool, you know, rinse right out, get all the dirt out of them. So I had it soaking. I'm looking at it, and I saw this area down here where it looked like that it had, like I'd taken my hand and rubbed over it. And I was thinking in my mind, you know, had I gotten my arm against it, like while I was putting the fan on or something like that, or been in there washing, you know, just too aggressively or something. Really got to looking at it and I realized what it was. Made my heart sink. Because it's where the individual tubes, the pressure from a 30-pound radiator cap had expanded those tubes and pressed my fins closed. And it's hard to see. There's a little bit of a shadow difference, but I got a big floodlight on the back and I want to show you, and if you can see it. And it's real evident. The floodlight's right in here. Do you see that bright light right there? That's because those fins are open above it. And then all of these fins here, they're not actually closed, but they're all crooked and closed up, you know, like really tight. Like when I take water and run through them, water will go through them, but you can't get light through. It's no longer a straight shot through there. It's got a curved pass where all those fins have gotten bent down and collapsed. And so the light doesn't go through. And the air is getting restricted just the same as well. So I got the car matted. I'm running the track and everything. The temperature comes up. The radiator cap is holding it. I have no issue with my temperature climbing. I'm okay with 230. I'm not going to cry at 240. That's not a big deal. I don't think it would even got there. I suspect that this happened below that. And then once this happened, then it really shot up the last few laps. Point being is, I don't want to push water. I don't want this to collapse because then that's going to immediately make the pressure skyrocket. And I don't want the pressure to overcome the cap and start pushing water out and get air pockets in the engine. As long as I can keep water in the engine and not have air pockets, or excuse me, steam pockets in the engine, then I know I'm okay. This right here, shut that down, put me into the danger zone. My engine's fine, it's not an issue. Got back in the pit, let it run, came right back down to temperature, no problems at all. But running this again, taking this to the Street Stock Nationals would have been a disaster because it's no longer going to keep up and everything. As far as I know, this radiator is ruined. I don't believe that I can salvage this. If y'all have had any success salvaging a situation like this, leave in the comment and let me know, because it's a brand new radiator, but it appears to be ruined. So, really scrambled, hustled up. Oh yeah, we're going to the Nationals. So anyway, so I got another dual core, change brands. I really needed to stay with my sizing and the way my mounts and the shroud are just because I'm time constrained and everything. So I went with the AFCO instead of the Speedway. They are different manufacturing and everything from them. They're saying no issue with a 29, 31 pound cap on this radiator as well. I hope that is the case. But regardless, we're going to put this in right quick, so let's get busy. We're going to be down there on a Wednesday night to start with for practice. And I've got my last 4 new H500 tires. I would not have those tires if it was not for my sponsors. People like the Live and Goods and Mr. Daryl Langley and his brother. There's Charlie Walker and several more, and then I've got several team members that support us on YouTube, and I really appreciate that. If you want to check that out, I've got the links. I went through and checked my fan shroud, put just a little bit of a crimp all the way around this outside edge and tightened it up just a hair, just to get it down on that fan as much as I could. And I want to talk about this fan right quick. So I'm checking everything on my cooling system, make sure I'm optimal. I'm carrying this cooling system with a 24-inch dual pass radiator, and that's not pushing the limits of a cooling system, but you do have to have everything right. So my 4-blade GM fan here, I checked my pitch blade, and I was looking at it, and I saw that my pitch had taken and it had bowed out a little bit. And so, like, this fan was originally like about 45 degrees on here, and it was out to about 40 degrees. And so I took and put it in a vise and just corrected my pitch to make all of these match exactly the same, back like it originally was and everything. You gotta really look at everything. When you're right on, you know, pushing right out there to the edge on a cooling system, you know, you gotta make sure everything's right. New distilled water, water wetter, you know, 30-pound cap to make sure that I hold pressure, don't push water. Of course, you know, tight on the shroud, everything's got to be right. And you know, why is this a 24-inch? This radiator, go back and check my build out if you hadn't watched it, because we go through this and show actually crafting all this. We've got this radiator set back inside of the steering sector right here. Everything on the front of this car is set back about 6 inches from what you would normally see. Don't get me wrong now, this engine's sitting correct. Its #1 spark plug is in line with the top ball joints across. No issues there whatsoever. It's legal, but we took, you know, if you look at this overall, the nose, the front bumper, the radiator, everything, and you start moving all of this back, you know, you're talking about moving anywhere between 50 and 100 pounds back 4 to 6 inches. That's a big deal. And so I know I'm right on the edge with this radiator, but I'm okay with that. Long term, my plans on this car, you know, is to go to a 602 at some point, E85. And I know I won't have any issues with a 24-inch radiator in that setup. But, you know, I'm not going to say it's marginal, but it's right to the limit. There can be no error for mistakes and everything. Can't be lean on the carburetor. Can't be missing something anywhere. Can't be low on water. Nothing like that. Days like today is when having a good design on how all of this stuff works really starts to pay off. Because this is a different brand radiator, and it bolted right in with no adjustments. And that makes me very happy. But the reason that it bolted right in with no adjustments is because we made everything adjustable. So by no adjustments, I mean I didn't have to cut anything, move anything, or anything like that. So the way this design is supposed to work, I'm supposed to be able to take these brackets loose and unbolt these 2 bolts and lean this fan forward and be able to pull this radiator up out of here. And in practice, it doesn't quite work out. In my next rendition, when I build my next car, because I'm planning on doing a metric frame next year, I've really got to pay attention to how much room I've got over here for my necks and stuff, where that my fan shroud system and everything will let this radiator like get the necks around. And then the other thing is like where my front, so this is my front support right here, and this needs to be like just a little bit further out. So I didn't quite hit my numbers on this. We're all about full disclosure. Hey, nothing's perfect. And so it's not quite there. That metric build next year, I'll get this right. Let's add a little insurance, make sure we don't have that happen again, and hopefully keep the front of it from getting beat all up. We're gonna put a rock guard in, and we're gonna put an air collector in, all right? Because I suspect I might have something going on here. We'll talk about that in just a second. First of all, the air dam. This right here is 1/4x1/4 square farm wire right here. So you can get this at like a farm, some type of a farm store that you've got locally, or a hardware store, hardware wire. But it's the 1/4 inch. The reason it's the quarter, this is not window screen. I don't want to do window screen. Window screen actually does create a lot of resistance in the air. I've run it, and if you've got tons of cooling capacity, it's not a problem. But I do think it would be a problem when you're right at the limit and you need to utilize all of your radiators. So don't like window screens so much. But this 1/4 inch stops rocks, stops big chunks of mud, breaks them up. The things that would actually dent the radiator up and cause damage to it, shorten life on it. All right, so we're gonna put this in. And where I'm gonna put this, I'm not putting it in front of the radiator. We're gonna build a collector. I'm gonna put it on the intake of the collector. So it's going right on the bottom. I'm not going to, worry about getting this in some type of a tight frame or perfectly closed. I'm just going to take some zip ties, come out here to the ends, and I'm going to get back a couple of squares. That way I don't just tear the last square out. And I'm just going to, so what I went 4 squares into this corner. And I am just going to pull that up right there. Leave that loose right now where I can get everything centered up. And I'm going to put this one in the same spot. In the exact same spot. And put it on this corner. Some people call them shaker screens. I've left them like loose. They do better if they can move around. If you leave the zip ties loose and they can move. Because when the mud collects on them, if they're shaking all over the place, then the mud will turn loose. It won't at first, but then the air's blowing through it and everything, and as it dries out and it's rattling and everything, it just falls right back off. And so you never actually fill it up. And so that's why they call them shaker screens. Then we'll turn around on the front and do the same thing. I'm going to come in, leave it. Matter of fact, I think I can double that. I've got some good long zip ties here. Alright, so I'm just going to get these even. This one needs to be pulled up. Yep, that's even. So I'm just going to cut them off. And I'm just going to leave that loose. That way they can beat and bang and move, and hopefully I won't have a lot of dirt get on it. Now it's open on the sides right here. That's fine. If I get any big clods in here, it'd be easy for me to get in and get them out. But all you're not creating a perfect system that's perfectly closed off or whatever. You're just, if anything big's coming up and it hits, it's going to catch it. Keep it from denting your fins up. Because over time you'll just slowly close up all these fins along the bottom right here. So we don't want to do that. Okay, next up, an air collector. I got 3 pieces. Plastic right here. This is really simple. You don't have to overcomplicate this. Now, I suspect, I don't like putting holes in the front of my nose because honestly this radiator should pull all the air it needs. Putting a hole in the front, all it's going to do is just put mud straight into the radiator. I'm not interested in doing that. Alright, so that's worse, not better. But I suspect that I am getting the front end at this point to really sit down on the track. And I'm pulling hot air. What I'm doing is I'm recycling hot air. I suspect that I've got everything closed off tight enough that, if the radiator is pulling really good, but instead of maybe getting track air that's at 95 degrees or 100 degrees or whatever that hottest condition is, I'm getting air that's already been through the radiator, already been through the headers, and it's getting recirculated, and I'm getting 130, 140, 150 degree air back through the radiator. Alright, so how do we solve that? Well, it's real simple. I'm going to take and put 3 pieces of plastic in. I'm going to put one right here. I'm going to put one right here on this side, and I'm going to put one right here on that side. Just like it right there. And so, I'm not trying to seal it off perfect. I'm just trying to direct. I'm trying to make this radiator its easiest path the air wants to take us from the bottom. I'm not trying to pinch it off to where it's got some tight constricted flow. I'm just trying to direct that hot air, to move out under the car when it does. I want all the under the car to be a low pressure system. When I say that, what I'm talking about is I want the the air under the car to be getting pulled out, and it struggled to pull air in, and that creates downforce on the car. You look at the guys who do all the wind tunnel testing and the modifieds and the late models and stuff, and what applies at 120 miles an hour or 130 miles an hour, it is relevant at 60 and 70 mile an hour. Is it a lot? No. But when you're driving on glass on a dry slick track, if you can get this car to really sit down on the track, I promise you, it is adding a certain amount of traction to your car. Okay? Can I tell you what that percentage is? No. Is it 1%? Is it 5%? I don't know. But let me put it like this right here. If you could just get 2 or 3 more % of traction out of your tires legally, would you do it? I'm going to say you would, especially if you didn't cost more. Okay? So look at it like that standpoint. You know, you're looking for every little piece of a gain everywhere you can get it. And so cutting the air off under the car matters, but the trade-off is if I'm pushed right to the limit on my cooling system, am I making my radiator really struggle for air, and so it's wanting to recirculate that air around because of it. So you got to look at this whole package. All right, so we're going to put these on, and I've already cut everything, but I haven't drilled it all. So I'm going to pop rivet this into the front right here. So the next one we're going to put in is on this side right here. I'm going to slide this right in. It's going to pinch in here pretty tight between my power steering and my radiator right there. That's going to work real good. And then I'm just going to take and slide it up just a hair. Again, we're not looking for perfection. More of it just being simple and easy to deal with. Gonna put a couple holes. Put a hole there. Put a hole there. Grab a zip tie. So you pick it up on the thing right here. Don't overthink this, y'all. This is not. It's not gonna make a lick of difference. I mean, you know, you want it to look nice if that's what you're after. You know, I'm after functional. But anyway, just like that. Okay. I'm just wanting stuff you can take, wash, beat the dirt off of. Right. Put one down here. Check out the new design for the shirt here. She's printing them up, getting it all ready to go right now. We're going to have those at the Southern Street Stock Nationals with us when we head down there next week. But hopefully, when this video goes up, she will have them on the website as well. Thought about this and looked at it, and the design is the way I did my tubes and everything. It works really well for it. I didn't design those tubes with this in mind to start with, but it sure did work out well. I'll say that. Alright, so now we're directing air. We're just basically keeping that hot air that might wrap around here from getting pulled into the radiator. Make it a lot easier to pull air from underneath. Yep, that's good. Just got to put distilled water, water wetter in it. And let's see. Oh, let's talk about this right front over here. Y'all come here. So this right front in the last race definitely took a pounding. Stood up to it. Car was doing well. Handling all the rough stuff and everything, so I was really happy with that. Couple of things that I've noticed. I've had some questions about my clearance right here, and I have got a clearance in my frame. There's a tunnel right here, and I had worked all of this out, and then I clearanced the frame to make sure that my swedge tube right here, you know, had good clearance in it, you know, for my tie rod in, everything like that. Ended up on my buck steer, I was right up against it and everything. Well, pounding against the track and everything, I was running this lower control arm all the way up into the stop and ended up steel contacting, put a little bit of a bend in the tube itself right here. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my heim joints here apart on both ends and just check and make sure they're not bent, they don't have any slack in them or anything like that in the actual joint itself. If it is, I'm leaving it because it's clearance the way it is. I need to go back and put a little bit more clearance in the actual frame itself right here. But at this point right here, this tube's great. There's no issue with it. Whatever room it needed, it's got it now after that last run on that track. So I'm just going to check, make sure nothing's bent, and I don't think it is, because the car was I never got that sensation of my right front bottoming out. And that brings us to the next thing right here. I've got witness parts in the powder coat on this hypercoil spring right here that shows that this spring itself actually got to coil bind on me. I got all the way to that. And I had moved my shock up so that when all of this stuff slammed completely down, you know, my O-ring on my shock still had a 1/4 inch to go where I kept from blowing my shock out. So that did fine, no issues with my shock. But these witness marks right here, now I never felt that in the driving of the car. The car felt like that I had suspension working on the right front even when I was in really, really rough stuff and didn't hit my entry right and just slammed through it with the right front. I felt like the right front was still working. Well, the reason for that is because the spring rubber right here was doing its job. So the coils themselves were binding up, but then my spring rubber was carrying my load at just a much increased spring rate. So it was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. In hindsight, as we really learn this car further and everything, will we get to a point where when we get to a track conditions like that, we'll know what spring rate that's higher to go to, or do go to a stiffer spring rubber possibly, or maybe the car just needs a little more ride height in it. Well, that's possible. But where I'm at now, I'm like, it survived it. It looked like it did fine. Leave it alone. Setup's okay. So, couple of things to note here. Put a lot of strain on this lower control arm right here. So I need to check this lower ball joint to make sure it hasn't gotten stretched. I don't necessarily need to take everything apart. I'm just going to take this Carter key out right here and make sure that this nut is tight. Because if it beat on it enough, it could just put a little bit of stretch into it. It would be like taking a wrench and tightening it down and then backing off. And so there might be a little bit of slack in there, so I'll check that. I'll check the same thing on the upper. Don't suspect anything going on. No hits in the rim, no hits on the wheel, nothing like that. But other than that, just check. After you've really beat up on the front end on a rough track, check every bolt and nut. And I've got this little bit of bow right here in the switch tube. So my front end toe out on this car, I'm going to check that. It should have drawn the toe in just a little bit on this car. So instead of being at 3/16 or a 1/4 inch, it may be drawn down to an 1/8 inch or something. So I'm going to check that and correct it. Other than that, good to go. To take down there to the Nationals with me, I'm taking 2 complete replacement upper control arms for the right side and the left side. I talked to Mr. J. Neal at BSB. I've got 2 more front shocks in case I wipe a front end out on the left or right side. I've got replacement shocks. He'll have them here to me before I leave. On the right front, we're going to stick with this 800 Gorilla Fist. On the left front, we're making a little bit of a change. We're going to run the car Wednesday night at practice, and we're gonna mess around with it and everything. But here's what I'm thinking. In analysis of how the car's driving and everything, I think I'm going to go back down on my left rear bite number some, but I'm going to increase the rebound on the left front because I think my bite is right, but I want to move how I'm making the bite to get the car to rotate through the center better, okay? So, a little bit weird, but we're going to try it out. We're going to hopefully get some video cam action on the left front as well. Hadn't got that yet. That's the last one to go on getting the cam action on that. And see what it does and talk about the details of how that feels and whether that works or not and why it works or why it doesn't work. So I'm really excited about that. I want to show y'all how that works out because we're going to learn how to do these shocks together, I swear. I'm going to clean all this up. I'm going to put it all back together. We're going to load this thing up. We're going to head to Mississippi. Hey, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment. There's probably lots of stuff here I'm missing, so tell me about it. I pay attention to those comments. I don't get to everything immediately, but I try to get to it all. And of course, hit that thumbs up for a like. See you next time.